All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we are breaking down the incredibly fascinating architecture of the VibeRounds Tool Hub. If you follow the evolution of clinical reasoning in the digital age, you are going to love this. We're looking at a centralized workspace built specifically to level up clinical reasoning and medical education. But here's the kicker. It doesn't work the way you probably think it does. It is absolutely not about feeding patient data into a machine to spit out a diagnosis. It's actually about refining how you, the human, think.
This right here is the million-dollar question, and it completely flips the current narrative around AI in healthcare. We're so accustomed to treating AI as this diagnostic black box, right? Like a magic oracle that just solves our problems. The VibeRounds Tool Hub, on the other hand, positions AI as an interrogator of your own clinical reasoning. It's a pure educational environment. It doesn't want to solve the case for you. It wants to ask you the exact right questions to expose your cognitive blind spots, helping you audit your thought process and ultimately become a sharper clinician.
Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with the Clinical Cognition OS, move into the white box architecture, check out the 11 reasoning tools, explore a brilliant concept called the mechanism of friction, and wrap up by zooming in and out on a specific case study.
Starting right off with Section 1, the Clinical Cognition OS.
Look at the sharp contrast here. On the left side, you have the traditional clinical solver approach, tools that just hand you an answer but completely hide their math. On the right, we have the VibeRounds approach, a learning stack. This hub is strictly an educational reasoning practice environment. You use de-identified cases or published vignettes because it is not for real-time, live clinical decision-making. Think of it more like a clinical reasoning laboratory. It actively forces you to separate what is explicitly written in a medical record from what you are personally inferring.
So what exactly is a clinical cognition operating system? Well, in medicine, experienced clinicians rely heavily on their vibe. But let's be real. That vibe is just a shorthand term for years and years of subconscious pattern recognition. What this system does is take that abstract, fuzzy intuition and ground it into structured, repeatable analytical steps. It gives you a dedicated workspace to deliberately practice your cognitive processing and really refine your mental illness scripts.
Now, in an era where everything seamlessly syncs to the cloud, you might be wondering, why wouldn't this AI just automatically share my data and save me some time? It's the elephant in the room, right? But the answer is actually baked right into the system's foundational design regarding privacy.
Which brings us perfectly to Section 2, White Box Architecture.
To absolutely guarantee your privacy and data autonomy, the Tool Hub runs entirely serverless right inside your browser window. There's no central backend database hoarding your keystrokes. You use your own personal API key to connect directly to your chosen large language model. It's essentially a private digital handshake. And when you want to save your records, they go straight into your personal Google Drive. The developers store literally zero of your data. It keeps your interactions completely locked down in a self-contained learning environment.
And this perfectly highlights their commitment to transparency. The hub aggressively rejects the black box AI model in favor of white box transparency. Every single prompt, every line of logic driving the AI, it's all openly published on GitHub. You never have to guess why the AI asked you a specific question. It is a completely open book, allowing you to audit the algorithm's logic for yourself.
Let's open up the toolkit itself. Section 3, the 11 reasoning tools.
So what's actually inside? The hub gives you a suite of 11 distinct tools, grouped by what they do. You've got core practice environments like the Case Simulator and the Case Bench, which are fantastic for Socratic learning. Then you have the analytical and debate tools. Clinical Polemos, for instance, is a super engaging debate-style exercise for working through conflicting medical perspectives. And finally, modular frameworks, like the Courseware tool, which actually lets you generate your own static learning content, like vignettes and Q&As, to fuel your practice sessions.
I absolutely love this analogy for the CCOS Builder tool. Treat clinical reasoning frameworks like Lego blocks. It hits the nail on the head. The CCOS Builder lets you take different analytical modules and literally snap them together. You can reorder them and customize them to build a bespoke analytical pipeline for any case you are working on. You become the architect of your own cognitive process.
But how do those Lego blocks actually snap together? That brings us to Section 4, the mechanism of friction.
This is where the platform makes a very bold, intentional design choice. These tools do not automatically talk to each other. If you finish an exercise in the Case Simulator and want to run it through the Clinical Polemos debate tool, you have to manually download your results as a plain text file,
and then manually upload that file into the next tool. Wait, manual text files in 2024?
Exactly. It's a feature, not a bug. This manual state passing creates what they call intentional friction. By completely refusing to automate the data transfer, the system forces you to literally slow down. You have to physically move the output and consciously decide what your next analytical step is going to be. It ensures that you, the clinician, stay firmly in the driver's seat. It takes what could easily be a passive scrolling session and turns it into highly active, deliberate practice.
Let's see how all of this comes together in the real world in Section 5, Zoom In, Zoom Out.
The platform's accessories section is where this guided discovery paradigm really shines, giving you a dual-layered approach. You can zoom out to generate a case dashboard. This gives you a high-level, bird's-eye view of a de-identified case, making it super easy to spot broad trends or gaps in documentation. Or you can zoom in using PodGI, which stands for Mapping the Patient Journey. This uses ready-made personas to take a granular, hyper-focused dive into the underlying physiological mechanisms. Let's look at a concrete example, a de-identified pediatric case of a 4-year-old with type 1 diabetes. When you zoom in using the Hub's structured prompts, it goes way beyond a basic summary. It actively hunts for the complex patterns causing the patient's yo-yo glycemic volatility. It flags dangerous overlaps like insulin stacking. It spots the Samaji effect, where nighttime lows cause morning spikes. It even highlights incredibly complex things like hypoglycemia-associated autonomic failure. It brilliantly maps out exactly how the messy reality of the patient deviates from the clean, textbook illness script. And this leads to the ultimate educational payoff. In this case, the system spots a critical documentation gap, specifically missing continuous glucose monitoring data. It then delivers a powerful M&M-style takeaway: technology is an amplifier, not a solution. It emphasizes that before you can successfully transition to dynamic insulin dosing, you have to master foundational analog skills first, like accurate carb counting. That is a massive system-level insight generated purely through guided discovery.
So the Vibrance Tool Hub really throws down the gauntlet. It challenges us to stop outsourcing our critical thinking to machines and instead use them to actively refine our own clinical cognition. With its transparent prompts, intentional friction, and strictly secure environment, it is the ultimate practice ground. Which leaves us with one final crucial question. Moving forward, are you going to use AI to architect and audit your own mental operating system, or are you just going to sit back and passively wait for the right answer? Definitely something to chew on as you explore these tools for yourself.